After the harrowing events of Cold War, the Captain Americas return home to mourn their fallen and strive to honor the power and legacy of the Shield. What'll happen next? Well, let's hop into the pages of Captain America issue number 750, a special anniversary issue, and find out what happens next together, shall we? Alrighty then, so it's time again for another big Captain America anthology, and it just so happens to hit around July 4th. First up, we got ourselves a Sam Wilson story, and I know what you're thinking, hey Joel, didn't his solo run just come to an end? Yes, it did, so Tochi Onyebuchi actually chooses to do something very interesting for the Sam story in this collection. It's actually a prequel, you see. We joined Sam Wilson 7 months before his new solo series began, and we actually learned the story of how he chose to become Captain America yet again, and also the origins of his brand new shield. Sam regales the reader, and by extension his two dead parents, with the story. Apparently Misty surprised him one day by inviting him to the country and showing him the brand new shield. Strangely, Sam is not really on board with the whole thing at first. He kind of rejects it out of hand, saying that he only put the Captain America costume on again as part of that bigger Christopher Cantwell United States of Captain America story, and that he never intended to keep it. Misty refuses to let Sam off so easy though, and invites him in for a cup of tea so that they can talk a little bit more about it. Misty doesn't understand why Sam would refuse a call to action like this, saying that the shield isn't just a gift from her, it's a gift from everyone. It means something. Is Sam backing down now because being Captain America was too hard, because he was too sick of hearing people say, he's not my Cap? Sam fires back by saying, oh, is this the part where you tell me that I'm doing this for the culture, for black people everywhere, because the symbol of Captain America is important, and when they see a guy who looks like me from the part of the world I come from, it sends a powerful, inspirational statement? Yeah, but what about what I want? No one ever seems to ask Sam Wilson what he wants. Eventually, though, after much poking and prodding, Misty does actually get Sam to open up about the true fears and anxieties that have been eating away at him. You see, the reason he put the Captain America suit down originally, and why he's afraid to pick it up now, is because deep down in his heart of hearts, he's afraid of losing it again. Few people know what that's like, to touch the greatness that is Captain America, to embody the dream, and then to have it all taken away from you. Sam also fears if he can live up to the hype. He's only human after all, and shouldn't Captain America be more than just human? Misty says that it's being human that is exactly why Sam is perfectly suited to take up the suit once more. Furthermore, when she says that the shield came from everyone, she meant Sam's friends. The vibranium was from Black Panther, Tony did the forging, Thor and Captain Marvel added their own extra flair, and even Misty herself hammered out the metal. Basically, Misty is saying that everyone else in the world already believes in Sam and believes that it's his time to take up the Captain America mantle. Why doesn't he believe in himself? It's a real catch-22, but thankfully, because this is a comic book, the problem ends up working itself out when a group of villains end up attacking Misty's cabin. Maybe they were Hydra, maybe they were Hand, it's not really important. What is important is that when push came to shove, and when his life and the life of his friend was in danger, Captain America Sam grabbed that shield like it was second nature, because, well, it is second nature to him. As this story comes to a close, we once again see Sam at the graveside of his parents, bringing together the theme of his own personal fear of loss. He thanks his parents for everything and says that without them, he never could have been Captain America. Now, the second story is a Steve Rogers-centric one. We see him and a bunch of his friends from New York go on a trip to England so that they can properly lay to rest Roger Aubrey the Destroyer. And yes, it doesn't make much sense at all that Steve Rogers, after making such a big deal about staying in Dimension Z, has now just returned to Earth, but they mention in the story that it makes no sense, so hey, at least they lampshaded it. Aubrey's funeral is a star-studded affair with all sorts of World War II era heroes from the Invaders, and even some other big names like Namor and even Wolverine stop by. Sharon Carter is the first to talk. She admits that she probably knew Roger Aubrey less than anyone else in the room, but in about the week's time that she spent with him, she truly grew to understand and relate to him. After all, their personal stories are very much alike, always told that they didn't belong, always told who they were allowed to love, what they could be. Roger Aubrey just didn't smash stereotypes, he destroyed them, and it's because of that Sharon, very publicly in front of the entire superhero world, says that she vows to take up the Destroyer mantle for herself and bring honor to the name. And you know what? This is actually a much better reveal for Sharon taking up the Destroyer name instead of her just kind of doing it in the middle of the Cold War story. If I was them, I probably would have waited until right now, but then again, we only got one more issue left of Captain America, and then this era is kind of done. So I guess they were kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. After that, Steve takes the podium and reads a sad poem, apparently one of Roger Aubrey's favorite, about the death of heroes. We also get to see that Roger Aubrey was buried next to Falsworth, the man that he loved, and his tombstone reads, "Destroyer Lawyer of Hate, which is a pretty goddamn good tombstone if you ask me. I may have mentioned before too how it kind of felt like Peggy Carter also got let off the hook rather easily in this, despite the part that she played in the Cold War event, but here at the funeral mostly everyone gives her the cold shoulder. And she ends up walking away not with Steve or any of the members of the main cast, but instead a few of the golden oldies, implying that maybe, just maybe, Peggy is going to be slumbering for the next little bit. It's once the funeral starts to clear out though, Steve goes up to the hill overlooking the church to meet Bucky. He wasn't invited for obvious reasons, but still thought that he should make an appearance. Now, even though Steve and Bucky had reached a sort of truce at the end of the Cold War storyline, there's still a ton of bad blood and stuff unsaid between them. After all, Bucky shot Steve. He used Steve's son Ian as a pawn in his plan to take down the Outer Circle. And of course, he played a hand in Roger Aubrey needing to sacrifice himself in the big fight with MODOK. But you know what? None of that actually seems to bother Steve. Eventually, he opens up and say what he was really thinking. Basically, that the Outer Circle were going to use his son as a pawn anyway, and at least this way in Dimension Z as a king, he's off the board. And hell, Roger Aubrey did sacrifice himself and would have anyway, whether or not Bucky was involved. But no, what really gets under Steve's skin is how for the first time in their entire friendship, Steve truly felt abandoned by Bucky, that he left him to fight alone in a way that he never did before. And that despite all the super soldier serums and years of training and in-the-field fights, really Captain America only felt invincible when he had his trusty sidekick by his side. It's these words that for once finally actually seem to penetrate Bucky's stubborn outer exterior, but before the two men can finally really have it out, a surprising third party actually enters the fray. It's the great-grandson of the man who originally built the shield for the Outer Circle. Again, they're tying it all the way back into the first volume of the brand new Steve series. And while at first it certainly felt like an 11th hour ass pull to me, the revelation that this great-grandson ends up bringing to Steve and Bucky is certainly fascinating. You see, the guy who originally forged the shield for the Outer Circle made it their symbol, and another piece in their Twisted Century game also built the Shadow Capital, that strange floating city that the Outer Circle rules from. This scientist absolutely hated the Outer Circle and knew that one day someone like Steve would rise up to stop them, and because of that, he actually built in a kill switch for the shield, meaning that Steve technically always had what he needed to take down the Outer Circle. He just needs to learn how to activate it, and when he does finally defeat them, he'll do it with their own symbol. And as that story comes to a close, Steve and Bucky are finally able to reconcile, as they now finally have a real path forward. And so that was Captain America issue number 750, everyone, and overall I thought this one was pretty good. It's mostly here just to wrap up a lot of loose ends from the last couple of years worth of Captain America stories, and I think they do a pretty good job with it. I like the Sam story here more than his actual finale, and the fact that his story ends with the beginning is actually a cool flourish that you don't often see in comic books. The Steve story, like I said, is mostly here to tie up loose ends and set the stage for the big finale of the Jackson Lanzig era. And I'd be lying if I said the whole thing didn't feel a little rushed. Don't get me wrong, there's cool ideas in there. I like that Sharon Carter now has a super identity all her own. I like that Redacted is going to start touring the world now, and because of that, Steve gifts him the name Nomad because, well, his son isn't using it anymore. But I also gotta wonder, is J. Michael Straczynski gonna pick up on any of this when his brand new Captain America run starts? I also really hope we don't find out later that this whole era of Captain America got cut short or had to be rushed only because they were getting a big new celebrity writer coming in, because that's always super disappointing to learn, and it happens more times than I care to admit. This is also an anthology issue, so there's some backup stories I didn't get a chance to cover. They definitely fit here in a big anniversary anthology, and you certainly get a lot of bang for your buck. There's another Sam story recontextualizing his time on the Avengers, but I think the real standout is actually a story that brings back Steve's childhood friend Arnie Roth, a Jewish man that Steve grew up with who also happened to be one of Marvel Comics' very first out gay characters. That character, in case you didn't know, was from an era when they couldn't really come out and say that he was a gay man. They had to do a lot of subtext and a lot of imagery. His story also had kind of a sad ending too, so it's nice for them to kind of come back to it now and kind of readdress things the way they did. Overall, I'd feel comfortable giving this one a 7.5 out of 10. It kind of does feel like a stopgap leading to the actual real finale of Captain America that's going to be coming soon, but as far as a big anniversary anthology goes, I wasn't disappointed with this one either. Hey there everyone, it's your pal Cape Joel again, and if you're seeing my face right now, that means you watched to the end of the video, and I'll always be grateful for that. Retention helps in this crazy YouTube game, and so does becoming a patron. If you head on down to the description, you can find a link to my Patreon page. Recently just redid all the tiers. A lot of cool stuff offering up there, exclusive commentaries, exclusive polls, behind the scenes concept art for Capes and Quest. That's the brand new D&D show I've started soon. Never been a better time to become a patron. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month and help the channel grow and, help me continue to deliver content like what you just saw. So I want to thank you all, and I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.